Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Friday, January 26, 2018. If you want to connect with us on social media, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, Last Point Gaming. You can friend up our Last Point Gaming Facebook account. You can follow us on Twitter, at Last Point Gaming. Or you can follow me personally on Twitter, at Stranger Sparrow. And you can always reach out directly with an email to lastpointgaming@gmail.com. Of course, on Twitter, the Last Point Gaming and Stranger Sparrow, no spaces, just run the words together. And as far as YouTube and Facebook, you can search for us with spaces, of course. So, week is finally over. Thank Nyarlathotep, Cthulhu, Yawgmoth, that God, just pick one. Thank somebody. I don't even care what their alignment is anymore. This has been one of those weeks where, the hits just kept on coming, you know? But it's alright. It's over now. Something else seems to be over now, but it's fine. We're just moving along. So, yesterday I talked about story time with Jody motherfucking Keith. Sweetheart that he is. I tagged him, of course, when I shared out the link on Twitter to the video I was talking about, because I do follow him on Twitter. And sweetheart that he is, he signal boosted us. That's really great. Talked about what I'm running tonight at F&M. Though apparently I gotta go look through my archives and dig out most of the cards for what kind of looks like it might be red-white aggro. It's red-white something. Maybe just Guy Perch. I don't know. Mirror Match asked to borrow some cards so he can come play tonight. I gotta see how many of them I have, though, because some of these cards, I can remember looking for them at some point, thinking, oh, I'm gonna build this deck list, and being like, oh, I don't have 9 Settle the Wreckage. Actually, I wouldn't play Settle the Wreckage, personally. I'm not saying it's a bad card. I'm saying it's not as great a card as everybody thinks, but it does not fit my playstyle at all. Yeah, I have 4 fucking mana up? What? It's totally inefficient. That mana should be tapped for something else by then. But in any case, I gotta go and dig and see what I can find for that stuff. It's Boo's week to go to F&M with me, so she's bringing her Mono White Vampire Monument. Her and Bird have been playing a lot at the kitchen table. We bought Bird the Jace Planeswalker deck from Ixalan because, man, you try to raise them right. But I got one who's, in love with Bolas, and the other one's in love with Jace, and I'm like, I don't think either of you are actually my children. Husband's kids, definitely, but mine? That's a little sketchy. Thing is, we had built Mono Blue Mill, with some proxy cards. That was pre-rotation. We only had 1 copy of, oh god, it's not Bump in the Night, Startled Awake. So we put in the Ixalan, or the Shadows? Was that Shadows or Eldritch? I don't remember. We put in the actual official Wizards proxy cards, even though there was only 1 copy. And there were a couple other cards that, we, wrote the names of them on the back of Basic Lands, because we had 1 copy of everything. 4s, that was a little sketchier. And we let her try to play that. Just at the kitchen table, of course. And, yeah, she did not care for it. She was doing fine until she hit, a strategic planning, and she was like, this card's stupid. And I'm like, I agree. And husband's like, no, it's not. The card's great. I mean, it's not Brainstorm, but I mean, what is? It's not Ancestral Recall, but what is? So she likes the idea of Bolas. She does not care for control. Whereas Bird's deck, of course, being the Jace deck, is a little more towards the mid-rangey, edging towards control. And she's having a ball with it. She's keeping some bad hands, but, that comes with time. Learning when to say, yeah, this ain't gonna make it. But yeah, they've been having a great time playing at the kitchen table, so that's awesome. Bird is a much more sensitive personality than Boo, so the shop she seems to find kind of overwhelming. Probably going to take her to the next welcome event and keep taking her to those until she, builds up the confidence to go play some matches with some other players at the welcome events and kind of slowly work her up. Boo's one of them kids, throw herself into everything with zeal and joy and depend on the world to catch her. Funny story. My dad took her and, my dad, my brother, his wife, their son, and my oldest daughter and Boo all went to do indoor skydiving, which sounds kind of neat. And it was funny, my dad was telling me all about it. The instructor's telling her, okay, when I tell you, you're going to need to fall forward, and don't be afraid. You need to just fall forward. I know it's going to be scary and whatever. And, he's like, okay, now. And, I guess they always expect that people are going to be tentative because throwing yourself at the floor with your face always seems counterintuitive. Not Boo. She's just like, boom. Instructor's like, all right, fantastic. She's bold and brassy. It's going to take her far in the world if she can channel it into productive things. She's decided she wants to try to get on the Pro Tour. So, we need to tighten up gameplay a little bit there. I think her ambition and enthusiasm really outweigh her willpower. Everybody's been saying the last couple weeks she's been playing Vampire Monument. Well, the last couple times she's played, because she only goes every other week with me. She does great game one. And then sideboarding happens, and you can see the focus drain out of her as the match goes on. But her game one win percentage is actually pretty good. Which, don't get me wrong, I know some decks do better pre-sideboard, but then post-sideboard, the only way you pull out a win is by sheer luck and, playing to absolutely all your outs and hoping your opponent gets a little boned on their draw. So, even if she wasn't losing focus, we may still be in... I remember when I was excited... when I started, my game one win percentage got really high. My match win percentage, not so much. Because that's usually where you start, is, you start getting really good at that game one. And it takes a little while to, figure out how to properly sideboard against different strategies. And, now that you know what your opponent's playing, and now that they know what you're playing, and so they're tailoring their plays based on what they think or know they're fighting against, things get a little sketchier. It's, I always say game one's the quick and dirty game, so if you have the choice between main decking an aggressive strategy, of course, main decking a faster lower to the ground card or more of a contingency plan card, you play the fast low to the ground card. You keep all the contingency plan stuff in your sideboard for the most part. That's why modal spells are great for aggro, Abrade. It's so rarely a dead draw that your opponent doesn't have a creature or artifact to hit with it. Lightning Strike, never a dead draw. Because you can always go to the face if you need to. But cards like Duress, dead draws in against other creature-based decks. Lost Legacy, dead draw early in the game if you haven't figured out what you're playing against yet, or if you guess wrong. Vraska's Contempt, I can't really ever see that being a dead draw because it can hit both creatures and planeswalkers. And I can't think of an opponent that wouldn't be running both, but you'd kind of rather have the fatal pushes, even though you may end up in matches where they're dead draws, or nearly dead draws. So, in any case, even her game 1 win percentage increasing, even if she wasn't having that focus bleed out as the round went on, she may still be losing games 2 and 3, but we're getting there. We're improving, and that's what's great to see. And her sportsmanship is excellent. That's like really what I worry about with taking Bird. Bird's a youngish child. We have a certain persona about us that almost all youngest children of multiple children households develop. And she can take a couple losses pretty well, but I don't think she can take losses like a champ like Boo does. I think one night of going 0-4 and losing 8 straight games would really just drain the joy of the game out of her. So we got to work with her a little more. Whereas Boo gives 0 fucks. She's like, oh, look, I lost. All right, cool. It was great playing against you. I picture her almost like a Viking woman. Like, what are you fighting for? The hell of it. In fact, like a female version of Mad Sweeney from American Gods. That sums up Boo right there. She has a little bit more of a conscience, but she's also pretty young, so that part's still developing. But, I'm impressed with the progress she's made. Bird, there's going to need to be a little more work involved, and she is also, like, really young. Boo is a little bit younger than the recommended starting age for Magic. Bird is significantly younger. She's also more of a girly girl in a lot of aspects. And society really doesn't teach girls how to deal with competition and confrontation very well. And that's not my feminist rant about, when girls are shitty about losses, they should be given a pass. No, don't give people a pass for bad behavior. It's like, I don't expect people to give Boo a pass when she screws up at F&M. Point it out. Help her learn. I do like that some of the guys are more patient than others, that some of the guys, will help her keep track of her triggers. But hell, some of those guys have helped me keep track of my triggers when I've missed them before. So, and they do with the other male players. It's not a young thing or a female thing that they're like, oh, well, I'm going to be extra nice to you. They're just all around nice guys. But yeah, nobody really seems to treat her any differently. And I kind of feel like that's important. I know a while ago I talked about the Invitational for SCG, the last season Invitational, where in the top 8 you had Ely Cassis playing against, I think it was Austin. It was one of the 2 real young kids that was in the top 8. I think it was Austin, not Rio. And a Rampaging Frost on trigger was missed when Ely played a creature. He played the creature and he's resolves. And kid's like, yeah, and then goes to start untapping and is like, oh, wait a minute, the Frost on trigger. Ely called a judge. Judge sided with the kid. I think Ely appealed it, and the appeal ended up siding with the kid. And I generally diligently ignore Twitch chat unless there's a reason I'm looking at it. Like yesterday, after hearing Jody talk about his experience at the Team Open, I actually watched the chat. But in general, I diligently ignore it. But I am sure there is somebody in there that was going off about him calling and appealing on a call against the kid. Well, here's the thing. Magic doesn't have a junior league. Kind of feel like it should, but at this point in time, it does not. So doesn't matter what your age is, if you're on the Pro Tour or if you're at an invitational, you're competing at that higher level. And nobody's taking dives for you. So I'm sure Ely would have called a judge for the same thing against any other opponent. And I don't think he was wrong to try to enforce it on the kid. I'm really surprised that even the head judge ruled against him. I get that it's not a May, but when you miss a trigger that is not detrimental, if the trigger is detrimental to you, that's a whole other thing. And you'll usually get some kind of warning for it, and they'll keep track of those, because that is an easy way to passively cheat. It's like, oh look, my Bob revealed my 10 cost card, so I'm just going to put that in my hand, and I forgot to take the life loss. But when missing a beneficial trigger, that's when it gets kind of like, can we rewind the game state? And when was it caught? Was it actually a mistrigger? Was it just a miscommunication? The fact that he had started untapping his lands and then said something, it kind of implies that it was indeed a mistrigger. And it's also another thing, if he would have marked the life loss down on his life pad, but not announced it and say Ely wasn't looking up when he did that. So they move into the next turn, and that's when he notices Ely hasn't marked down that life loss and say, oh, wait a minute. Hey, you lost a life when you played that creature. And you can show that you didn't miss the trigger. That you saw it, you marked it down, it's just your opponent missed it or failed to mark it down. And it happens. I mean, your focus is all over the place, playing. That would be one thing, but he's like, okay, yep, the creature resolves. Moving along, untap, oh wait. At that point, it really looks like a mistrigger to me. But I don't know. My comprehensive rule knowledge is not as good as my regular, of course, because that's mostly what I interact with on the rule side of things. Because at FNM, yeah, you just rewind. Not enough changed in the game state to make it detrimental. Just rewind and be like, all right, creature resolves, you take a point of damage. Ta-da. And you move on, you use it as a teaching moment and say, okay, now you need to keep track of your triggers and, all that. But at competitive REL, things are enforced a little bit differently there. Again, I'm still learning all that, so... but again, if he would have called the judge, if he was, say, playing Todd Anderson, the same thing happened. Calling the judge on the kid is not a crime against humanity. I don't know what I'm babbling about at this point. Oh, man. Seriously, it's just been one of those weeks. Found out my favorite colleague one of my favorite colleagues accepted another job offer, and he's going to be leaving us. One of my good friends appears to not be talking to me anymore, and I have zero clue why. I have negative clues on what the fuck I did to piss in his Cheerios. If I even did anything. I don't even know what's going on there. We had car inspection today for husband's car. Luckily, it passed today. It kind of has a death sentence, so we got to figure out something by this time next year. Car has served us well. Volkswagen Jettas, we have had that car for 10 years, and the only major repair it ever needed is when I really foobarred the brakes. Really should have gotten them work done, and I didn't, and let it go so long that the back plate of the brake pad of one of the brakes fell out of the car. Yeah, did you know that could happen? I didn't know that could happen. That can happen. It was the only really major repair it's ever needed. Aside from that, it's oil changes, tires, brake pads every couple of years. It's been a great car. We probably won't buy another one. It does have one major drawback, and that is that it has blind planes of existence. It's not just a blind zone, not just a blind spot. It is an entire plane of existence that, from personal experience, you can fit a bright red SUV into. But it's been a great car. But it is sad to be looking at that like, okay, we're going to have to buy another car, and we're going to buy a new car, of course we are. But it's a little bit annoying. Work hasn't been too bad, I guess. Actually, been a pretty slow week for me, but that's about to change. Ugh. I got the notice of what's coming down the pipeline, and it's a biggin'. So yeah, still haven't solidly picked a legacy deck for this X-Mage League yet. I'm thinking Storm, because I'm gonna have like no clue what the hell's going on anyway. I might as well do it with a deck that I'm not expected to have a clue what's going on. The other thing is I have no idea what is really in the legacy format. There's lands. I know that deck. There's the Enchantress deck. I now know of that one. And not gonna lie, that does look kind of neat, because enchantments are fun. I know there's a Legacy Elves build. I know there's a Legacy Burn. And I know there is Manaless Dredge, which seems really appealing until somebody plays a Graveyard Hate card turn 1 or 2. Then you're a little screwed. So, yeah, I got very little clue about that format. And Storm seems to be one of those decks that you just kind of do your thing. That there's not a lot of, okay, I'm playing against this, so this is how I have to look at things. It's mostly like, oh, what a nice Leyline of Sanctity you have. Cool. Putting in empty the Warrens. Or that's at least how modern Storm looks. I don't know, though. Caleb Shearer makes that deck look incredibly easy to play, and I'm pretty sure it's actually not. But since I'm going to get my ass kicked in Legacy anyway, I might as well broaden my archetype and look at a spell-based deck and, you know, completely suck at something, but start learning a new skill set. Right? That's how that works. I think for Standard in this league, even though I'm currently on Black-Red Pirates, I think I'm going to build Vampires. Usually I try to play the same decks in paper and what I tool around with on X-Mage, because I really don't want to fall in love with the deck on X-Mage and be like, oh my god, but it's $3,000 to buy this deck and I have like nothing for it, and I'm not paying $3,000. But I know Vampires, I'm not that far off. I mean, this league is also for, like, nothing. So, I don't know. Maybe it would be better in Standard for me to look outside my traditional archetype, too. When I have a little of that coddling where, you know, it says, hey, you have a trigger, instead of potentially missing them. Or I might do Vampire Monument. That deck is hella fun to play. I had a great time with it when I played it last week. It's seriously, it's just such a fun deck. It's fun when you're winning, and it was also kind of fun to lose with it, aside from the whole fumigate my, you know, billion or so tokens. That hurt a little. But I should have been playing around it. Like, I shouldn't have been kept committing to the board state. Unless I had something in my hand to, like, the goal was to force his hand and make him play it and get it out of the way. Oh, they're doing construction-y things. Good. I thought my car just made some, like, super weird noise, like Haster was waking up. Sorry, all the Cthulhu references During the Philip DeFranco show yesterday, he referenced the fact that the doomsday clock has ticked down, and we are now 2 minutes to midnight, and all I can think of is all the gods that you're trying to stop from waking up in Arkham Horror. And so they've been kind of on my brain. Sorry for all the ums. God, this is just a bad cast, guys. My bad. I don't really have a lot to talk about, though. JTQ next weekend. That's gonna be interesting. I'm still not entirely sure how that works. Did a bunch of new tokens this week. One of them was supposed to be of one of the other judges in this region. The first take. So I never really draw male characters. It's just not something I've done. I draw like fairies and angels and elves and shit. And not that these things can't be male, but so, and I very, very rarely draw things that are supposed to look like people. I mean, when I was working on the league thing with the captain, I made him look like a 12-year-old. The one guy looks strikingly like Peter Dinklage in his little caricature. I managed to turn a very Caucasian woman into Mulan, and I don't know what happened there. The one guy kind of came out looking like a leprechaun, but he kind of looks like a leprechaun. Not in a bad way, but he kind of does. That one came out probably the best. So I did this pirate token, and I posted a bunch of the pictures yesterday. And the Epidemic, God love him, comments on the tokens album and goes, the pirate one really looks like a lady pretending to be a man. I'm like, God damn it. And I look at it, and sure enough, he is dead on correct. So I took another pass at that one today. It turned out much better. I had to look up a reference image for like a masculine face. And that really helped. Also, a lot of my people drawing has a lot of elements of like anime manga drawing, because that's where I got started drawing people. I still don't do humans very often, or humanoid characters very often, because my proportions never turn out right, like, at all. The body, or the head is always way too big for the body, like, even more so than, like, chibi anime style. So, even the males in anime have a distinct feminine cast to them, if you've never noticed this. And the differences between, like, male and female face shape is really subtle, and mostly comes down to the eyes, from my experience. But today's turned out much better. I'm excited about that. Husband found that TCG Player is now allowing people to sell alters through them. So he's like, so you need to start drawing these tokens on the actual token card, and then we can sell them on TCG Player. I don't know. I don't really... I mean, I'm going to give it a shot. Of course I am. But the thing I kind of don't like about this is, like, this album of tokens I have. I think I'm up to... Let's see here. The two Thopters, the Servo, the Cat, the Treasure, the Plant Token, Pirate Merfolk, two different versions of the City's Blessing. I don't know. I'm up to, like, 20 or so. But what they don't show is all the scrapped sketchbook pages where I started working on a concept and was like, just not getting there. And rather than erase and try to fix, it was better just to blow it away and start over. Like, I hand draw all these. I need to, like, start working. Like, I got this great Samsung A something or other tablet with the S Pen, and I've done a little bit of digital drawing work with it. I was working a lot with it a while ago, and had gotten okay skill level. And then I stopped, and now I'm back to working with pencil and paper, and it's really not the same drawing between the two. I wouldn't say either one's inherently better or worse. They both have their pros and cons. That, their advantages and disadvantages. I mean, one thing with the digital drawing, at least you can get color fills, and you can, lower opacity, and you can do all kinds of cool stuff like that. And layers. Layers are great. So, I don't know. I think I might have to take another swing at that, but even there, I can't sell them as alters, because you gotta alter the actual card. But husband has also said about setting up an Etsy store or something. I don't know. I just kind of do this shit for funsies, much like this cast. I'm not sure I want to try to monetize them. I know I've had a couple people approach me and they're like, well, how much would you charge me to do a set of tokens for me? And while I truly appreciate that they come at it from the point of view of, this is a product you would be producing and I'm going to pay you for it. Because a lot of times artists don't get that. They get the, oh, hey, can you do this for me? Okay, cool. Here's the price. Well, but exposure. And even when I first started in the web dev world, I kept taking on free projects to build my portfolio and everything. And husband's like, you need to stop doing this. It's driving you nuts. It's driving me nuts. And there's no financial benefit. You have a skill set that is valuable. And if people want you to use this skill set on their behalf, they need to give you money. So, I appreciate that they approach with the payment aspect, but I'm like, well, what do you want? And they're like, well, it depends on how much you're going to charge. And I'm like, you really got to define what you want and let me come up with a couple drafts, some concept art for you to, tell me how you feel about it before we start narrowing down that, because I might not be able to do what you want. None of my tokens have backgrounds or anything like that, because I draw them and then I slap a magic card on top of it and frame out the border and what piece of the art's getting cut off and that kind of thing. But I try to keep them about the size I want to fit everything on the card. Whereas, a lot of the art they use on magic cards, it's much bigger art that then they clip a certain part of it. Black Lotus, they did a real close-up, but the full painting of it is actually a much bigger and a bit more expansive. And that's why the middle of the Black Lotus looks like a cookie when you close up on it. And that's not the approach I take, which, I could. Alright, husband's coming out, and that's kind of scaring me, so I gotta go. As always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you all on Monday.